Okay, we're here with a guy that's got a heck of a good first name. This is Eric. Okay, Eric, why don't you tell us about yourself? What you do, what you've done. I mean, just tell us about yourself, your past, how you got here, etc.
Sure. My name's Eric Taylor. I'm a senior operations manager for a 3PL company called Verst Logistics. My path was long and different. I got a scholarship straight out of high school to play baseball for Michigan.
Oh, wow.
So I am a big Michigan fan, as you can see on the mask. I did the surgeries back in the day were not the same as they are today, so I tore my ACL, and that pretty much ended my baseball career. But I did continue to stay in college, got my bachelor's degree in business management, and then I decided I was going to the military.
Okay.
So then I went to the military. I went through the officer school.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Yep. And then of course traveled the world. Did 2 tours in Kuwait. And then
What was your specialty or your what is it, MOS?
MOS.
Yeah.
So I went in as 11 Hotel, which was a tow gunner on top of a Hummer.
Okay.
I shot it during basic and AIT, and after that I never shot it again. Because when I graduated basic and AIT, they sent me to airborne school. So after I graduated airborne school, then I became an instructor for the 82nd Airborne Division. So I worked on the jump towers in Fort Benning and Fort Bragg. And then of course, when we got deployed, then I would travel with the airborne unit for 82nd Airborne. So my leadership really started in the military, with being in the officer side of things.
Okay.
And then when I got out,
Well, first of all, I mean, maybe before, I mean, this is something that I haven't brought up before. I mean, tell me tell us maybe a little bit about what drew you to the military. I mean, what perhaps some of the positives that maybe you encountered. I mean, some of the positives that might be there for individuals that would just enlist. I mean, what you got out of it, what you didn't get out of it. I mean, tell us just maybe briefly a little bit about some of that.
Sure. When I got out of college, I wasn't really 100% sure what I could use my business management degree for. Didn't know where I wanted to start. My family has been a military family my whole life. I was a military brat and got moved around from state to state with my father being in the military. So I thought that I could further my horizons if I joined the military, one, for family point of view, but the other was I wanted to see the world. I wasn't sure how I wanted to use my business management degree yet at the time, and I wanted to see the world, and the opportunity was to join the military. There was some good incentives during that period of time for signing up, so there were sign-on bonuses. And then you can learn skills, certain areas of the military, you can learn trade skills and stuff like that. That you can bring out after you've finished your service, you can come out and you can use those in the workplaces. So I wanted to home really on leadership. That's why I went to become an officer. Because leadership is, different, as in you are engaging others, and you are helping them see things and setting goals and accomplishing those goals as a team, right? And that's where I wanted to spend my time as a leader. I didn't really want to work in a factory and work on a factory line where I do the same component every day. I like challenges. I love puzzles. So I love trying to understand how things don't work and how can I make them work, right? And that's kind of what led me down the military path, right? But then after I got out, then I was back in the same realm where, okay, I have new skills, I have some leadership and understanding and problem solving things, and I had a degree, and it was like, where do I want to land, from here? And I looked, and sales was not something I wanted to get into. I didn't really want to work on an assembly line. Owning my own business is something I would have loved to have, but I just didn't have the money at the time. So when I got to looking at the workplace and then stuff that was available at the time, what I noticed was there was distribution opportunities. And of course, I went online and they give you a description of what position you're applying for. And it wasn't an assembly line worker, but it was just a floor worker that would work on a piece of equipment and unload trucks. And I was like, okay, well, I really haven't had that experience. And I thought it would be interesting to understand how trucks are being unloaded and how they get sent to wherever they're going to go. If you're buying a boom box or something at Christmas, how does that boom box end up on the shelf? I was just intrigued me. So that's why I really started there, and I started with a company called Circuit City Distribution Center, which no longer exists, by the way. I started there as a receiver, what we call a receiver, or somebody that's used equipment and unloaded trucks and then put that product into locations to be picked later, right? And that's what I did. A few months later, I was approached about my quality was good, my performance was good, and they wanted to know if I wanted to try other things with my leadership experience that they knew that I had, my officer abilities out of the military. They would like to know if I wanted to go through like a leadership program within the company, if that was an option for me. And I said yes. And then I went through that course, quickly, went through that course, and then they were interested in making me the inbound lead, which was a little bit next step level, but had to plan and organize the day along with as an unloader. I was doing what they were telling me to unload. And then when I got into the leadership role, I had to look at it and go, all right, now I have to plan for these 7 people on what they have to unload and how, and then plan the day in a timely manner to make sure I can efficiently get it done. So then we can satisfy customers on the outside of the building, at a later date, right? So I got into that, and then, and as I grew in that role, then there's a supervisor position that came available, which was the next step up, right? Which led me into a whole realm of new opportunities. With the Circuit City distribution was, if you got into the supervisorial role, every 6 months you rotated.
To different departments?
Yes, to different departments. So this is getting my feet wet into civilian leadership is different than, I guess, military leadership. And I'll give an example. Military leadership was, I tell you what to do. And civilian leadership is, I ask you to do things. And you learn that really quick in the civilian life. But as I got into the supervisor role, it was a next step level above the team lead, which now I was planning, not so much, I was working with the lead on developing them on how to understand how to plan a day or an hour. But in the background, I'm working on how can I plan the week, the month, the year, right? So then my picture of the business starts to get larger. And then I only have a 6-month window, by the way, because then I know I have to rotate. In this company, you had to rotate. So I knew I had to learn as much as I could, develop my team to be able to accomplish those tasks, and to prepare the person that may be taking my position. And it could be promotion or it could be just a transition around.
So, I mean, obviously, I think that would be great for the members of management that were doing this, but, I mean, did you find that, I mean, for continuity, just having the same person in the department, was that a drawback for the organization or the department that the same person wasn't there?
It's twofold. One was it's challenging because you constantly seem like you're having to retrain or reorganize and everything else. The philosophy of the business, though, was there's only so many supervisorial positions available. So after X amount of time, everybody's walked through all of them. Now they're all interchangeable. Now they understand how this department affects this department. So it's like a chain, right? So understand you have an upstream customer and a downstream customer. And if you're handing something to somebody, that's your downstream customer. And if they're handing something to you, that's your upstream customer, right? So their philosophy was if you did that, you made a well-rounded team and they understood what each other had to do. So they could interchange if they needed to, right? But that's a time-driven dedication goal, right? It wasn't going to happen overnight. And if you have turnover where somebody leaves and goes to another company or another site or something, then you have to start that circle back over again. So that's one challenging aspect. But the positive thing is you get a well-rounded leadership team that can work all the other areas.
Yeah.
And like I said, so the whole time I was with Circuit City, I spent 12 different supervisorial positions before I was promoted to a manager's role.
Okay.
And then when I got in a manager's role, I think I spent 6 different positions there, which is just another level up from a supervisor. But it is, when you get into the management level, it's all about development. It's not, yes, you have KPIs in every position level that you go to.
And a KPI
It's a key performance indicator.
Okay.
So it's basically it's a goal that you have, and you are tracking that over time to make sure that we are hitting that goal, right? And if you're not hitting that goal, then you're trying to figure out how we can make that goal in the future. So at a high level, the management role, the next level is, yes, you see those in your radar, but you're helping develop your teams on how to problem solve and how to make positive change in the workplace will have a positive impact to making that goal in the future, type of thing. And you spend more time coaching and developing than you do, reprimanding or firing people. It's all about how can we get there together, right? And so I really enjoyed the management level role because I'm big on development. And there are leaders that are development leaders that are all about, if I'm going to go to the next position, I want to develop the person below me to take my position. One, for it's easy for the company to transition people, but then also it's encouraging to and satisfying to see somebody that you have worked with
take that next step.
Yeah. Right? And then you're always a mentor to them in every step that they do. But there's also leaders out there that they're not development leaders, and they are just nothing but data-driven leaders. And what happens is a lot of times they move on, but it leaves a gap within the workforce. And sometimes that's very painful to businesses because they can't fill that role immediately because this person has moved on, those type of things. So it's a blend. It's a blend. When I like I said, when I say the word leader, in my mind, I think influence. As a leader, you influence everything you do, positively or negatively. Everything you do influences the others. And
So we're talking about all of this has been at Circuit City.
so that's up to Circuit City.
Now, where was this distribution?
So Circuit City distribution was in southern Illinois.
Okay.
It's a town called Marion, Illinois, next to Carbondale, Illinois, where there was a college. So that was all pretty much to there.
And when you talked about the different departments that you worked in, both as a supervisor and the different managerial types of roles, could you maybe mention a couple of those, all the varieties of places or departments?
Yeah. So for anybody that may not know what Circuit City was, showing my age a little bit here, Circuit City was I would say for everybody that may know, is Best Buy. We were Best Buy's #1 competitor. It's a consumer electronics store that also did appliances, all right? Big warehouses. Just to give you a concept, the warehouse in Southern Illinois was 1.2 million square feet. That is, you can put 15 different football fields in it. Very large for big screen TVs to, iPads or iPods, those type of things. So within that business, you have your inbound, then you have your outbound. That's your primary two areas. But when you look at it, inbound could be broke out in multiple functions. It could be, you have your smaller parts or consumer electronics,
Okay.
and then you have your medium size and your large size, right?
Okay.
So you have your inbounds broke up into different areas based off the size of the product, because they have to go to a different part of the facility, because on the outbound side of things, they have conveyors and equipment to pick certain things. So you break your inbound up, even based off of your product. And then after it's inbound, then it has to be put into a location so you can use the system, RF scanners or whatever system there is, to pick the product, right? So you got to put it away so you can, and then track it through your inventory, because inventory is king when it comes to any type of business, is because if you don't lose product, you can't sell it, right? It's a loss. So you want to make sure you're accurately putting it away and you're accurately picking it. So after it's put away, then you have to replenish it to prime. So some places, to make it faster, they will have designated prime locations where that's where they pick it from. And then the reserve locations are your larger quantity. It's where you're just holding it until you need to take it to your prime. So you receive it, you put it away. Now you're like, oh, now I got to replenish it so we can pick it faster, And then once you pick it, there's multiple ways of picking it. You got, like I said, you have conveyor picking. You have what we had called tote picking, where you would pick it and put things in little totes, smaller items.
Okay.
Yep, into plastic hard totes that we would stack into the shipping containers when we shipped them. And then we had fulfillment. We had an online fulfillment that people could go online to circuitcity.com and order whatever they wanted, from a battery to a big screen TV. And we would ship that out through a parcel, FedEx, UPS, and those type of things. And if it went to a store, then we had trailers that were lined up in the door. We either picked it by equipment and staged it at the door, or a conveyor system above in the ceiling would take it and drop the product that we picked on a certain label for that store destination. And then we would load it onto a trailer and stack it on a trailer. And that trailer could have 10 different stops on it. So we would load one, board it up, put another trailer in it, or another trailer loads worth of product for another store, and then board it up and do another one. So then when it would go out logistically, we would say the furthest store would be in the nose, the closest store would be in the front. So they would just back up, unload till there was
The board.
and they would stop, and then they go to the next stop and they do the same thing. So it was logistics, planning, and that aspect too. So it's distribution is very wide and variations of planning, and every department has their own particular planning, and if you don't plan correctly, it could affect the department next to you in line, right? So that was Circuit City. Circuit City was probably was my first into civilian leadership and distribution, right? Unfortunately, Circuit City closed its doors, and then I had to look for more employment. You know, they closed their doors, and I stayed until we were completely empty in the warehouse, and down to the point where we're tearing down racks and giving them selling them off to the racking companies that bought the racks out of the building.
I mean, so at this point, I mean, you've got a very strong knowledge of how, I mean, just distribution centers in general work, from the original perspective of hourly, then supervisor, and then manager roles. So I mean, at that point, you're in Southern Illinois.
Yeah.
I mean, do you look in Southern Illinois? Do you have to go somewhere else? I mean,
you go back online where look at what positions are available out there, and in Southern Illinois there was not a lot of industry. There was really the college, and then this happened to be really the only big distribution center that was even in Southern Illinois. So the business wasn't there. So I said, I'm going to go back to my hometown, which is still in Illinois, but it's about 45 minutes from St. Louis. And I was like, because St. Louis is a big city, so I know there's work there, and I seen it online. So then I started applying to distribution centers again, because I really enjoyed what I was doing, and to see what was out there. And there was a company that is local here in Kentucky, but also operated in the St. Louis area by Dorman Products. And they're here in Warsaw, Kentucky, but they also had a plant in Missouri. So I started working there, and it's an aftermarket automotive company. So we will basically send out parts to AutoZone and O'Reilly or Napa, right? And distribution centers like that, or even to their stores, Rock Auto was, so there's some, you can see some of these, and there's tons and tons of customers in the automotive industry. But these are just some examples that everybody's probably heard, and that's kind of why I was mentioning those. So I started there as a shipping manager, right? They had a shipping manager position available. And this was one of the smaller plants, and all they did was brake line components. So everything they did was brake line components, which was a smaller parts, didn't need a big facility, those type of things. And it was local. It was more local to my hometown, so I took that opportunity. I quickly learned that the company was much bigger, and it was an umbrella company for other companies. So as I developed and learned the automotive industry, right, because it was totally different. This is the service side of automotive. It's not. It wasn't, a brand new part to a dealership. This is aftermarket, something that you could buy from AutoZone for a cheaper part than you would if you had to go buy it from Toyota, for an example, or a Chevy dealership. You could save money. They're OEs, what they call them, right?
OE that's original equipment?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Original equipment is your OE, and then so what Dorman would do is say, okay, here's a part. OE, as in the dealers, always constantly have to replace these, and then Dorman would say, I'm going to be first to market as a generic, as you would say, right? As a generic way of saying it is, I'm going to develop and create this part, and then now they can come and get it here at a cheaper cost, and we can take some of that market share from the dealer itself and and build our business, right? And that's what they would do. So their biggest thing was first to market on new component parts that may need to be replaced, you know. So as I learned with them, the company was much bigger, right? Then basically the company was getting large enough that they had to put in a whole new operating system for all the facilities. And they needed
computer system,
yes, computer
right?
system,
Okay.
warehouse management system.
Warehouse management, okay.
They needed it to work together with all the sites because all of them had individual kind of systems. But the business grew so much, they needed sales and to be able to speak to the operating system and see how much on-hand inventory they had to commit to a sale to a customer, those type of things. So it's called a warehouse management system. So they decided they wanted to go with SAP, which is a big known warehouse management system. So I found myself.
That does have a lot of things outside of just the distribution center.
Yes.
That for sales and even probably manufacturing.
They have sales, manufacturing, loss prevention, inventory control. There's a bunch of different boxes you can build together to build this warehouse management system. And being that we were new and complex, I wasn't 100% sure how the components were going to work, and so they put me on the team to help develop this program. So then I went to the corporate facility, which was out in Pennsylvania. And I spent 6 months out there helping develop and design and create this SAP block for this building, which was just the distribution piece of it, right? And then had to work with some of the other blocks to understand how they could intertwine and communicate with each other. So after I did that, then we actually my site was the first site to be implemented of all the sites, because it was a smaller one. It went very, very well. We did point out a lot of opportunities that it's fine for us as a little one, but if you go to the bigger sites, it could be catastrophic. So we have to fix these things. So we spent the next 6 months fixing these little things, to another example. Well, when they went to go implement it to all the other facilities at the same time, I was asked to go support at the local Warsaw facility here in Kentucky. So I came down and I helped work through and implemented that and spent a couple months here with the team in the Kentucky facility and developing them and their understandings and training, but then also was there for the launch and for any problem solving, any things that needed to happen. And then they made me an offer just to stay at Warsaw. So I relocated and came to Kentucky. And then basically spent some years there. And then I had the opportunity, they were looking to rearrange some of their buildings, and they were going to take some of the Warsaw facility and put it in Portland, Tennessee, which was a section of the building that I worked. I just actually started, I had 10-year-old twin girls that were just really starting to grasp into the world around them, and I didn't feel it was probably in the best interest for me to relocate at the time. So I started looking around again. But this time, I'm using my experience and understanding of businesses that I have learned in distribution. I wanted to stay in the same realm, but I wanted to broaden my horizon, but I also wanted to work within a company where I had the ability to build a culture that was aligned with the company. And that's where I landed at Verst. And Verst is a family-orientated company that I would say they don't look at you as a number, they look at you as a person. And some companies are. Some companies it's like you're, next man up type of thing, and it's so fast-paced that they don't have time to build a relationship with their children I call them my
Going.
children. I call them my children. I call them my children because it's like they're all my kids.
This guy's the poster child for they're part of his
They are. And I'll give you an example of that. I took a course in college just to creative write, right? This is post my degree, because I had an associate that came to me that didn't speak a lot of English, but her child spoke English and Spanish. And I didn't know a lot of Spanish or anything like that, but she wanted to write a bedtime book that her daughter could read in English and Spanish. I didn't know anything about creative writing, but being this associate asked me if I could help her. I went and took a creative writing class. We actually wrote a book. She got it published. She sold like 3,000 copies of it. It was called The Purple Elephant, right? But I didn't know, you know what I mean? But you could read it, and it was in Spanish and English, right? So, and she just wanted to do that for her daughter, and so which is awesome. But I look at that as there's just an extension to my family, right? Once you're in my family, you're in my family, right? So I call them my children, for example. But so I got here, and I really, at this point in my career, I wanted to be very selective on where I went. And then when I seen Verst, and I seen their core values, it mimicked what I was wanting to do as a leader that I couldn't do at some other other companies, because their business philosophy may have been different. So I applied, and they made me an offer that I couldn't refuse, right? So then I've landed here, and this is where I am now. I've been here for just a little over 2 years. And when I started with this company, it was a really small portion of the business. We call it one pallet in, one pallet out type of thing. And now we're a full-blown distribution center. We had 6 people that worked at this facility. Now we have 32 that work at this facility across 2 different shifts. And it's a 3PL company, which does a lot of different things for different customers, but this particular site is still on the automotive. But now I'm back on the OE side of things and not the aftermarket, because now I'm on OE, which is Toyota's the customer we currently have. And we do what they call special activities here. It's one of their highest priority part line that they have. It's tied to what we call recalls. There may be a safety recall. You hear about airbags on TV all the time, right? We carry airbags, and we will ship airbags out to the customer so they can replace them on their vehicles. We'll do parts from little washers to engines. It just depends on what the recall is on. You also have cosmetic recalls where you live out west, and they know your dash is going to fade every 7 years. So if you have your car longer than 7 years, you can bring your dash in, and they would replace it for free because it fades because of the sunlight. So there's all kinds of different recall reasons too. So that was an education to myself too, is how do you deal with government standards and regulation for HAZ, and how to timelines you have for safety recalls, and then also how do you implement that into distribution and still be able to build in your lead time to make it to your downstream customer, which is the customer that's waiting for the part, right? And another thing that's really unique is when we having to work with the overseas cultures and how we have to ship and deliver those to them. For an example, I'll just use Japan, right? Because we're Toyota working customer. It's a different culture. We have to pack and ship things differently to that country and to the headquarter distribution center differently because the culture. For an example, if you go to a dealership and they tell you, hey, your starter doesn't work, do they show you the part, or do they say, I can put it on for this cost? In Japan, they bring the packaging and everything to you and say, do you want this as a gift? So you got to understand how your customers get impacted on whatever you do on a daily basis. Because if there's a crease or a crack or a smashed corner in that box, and they can say no, and their culture is damage the part, here's a new part. Do you want this one? So the culture is a gift, not like in the United States where it's like, all right, this is your problem, okay, yeah, fix it, and you don't ever see the part until it's on your vehicle. Mm-hmm. Totally different in different cultures of the world. So you have to do different things when you start shipping outside of the United States. And that was something I had to learn because I didn't know how different cultures can impact even just distribution or transportation.
Wow. Yeah, no,
it was very eye-opening and mm-hmm. interesting to me. So that was eye-opening, but it's encouraging every day, and the business is growing. I got my hands in some other buildings now, and I'm looking for the next role in this company, and that's where I'm at today.
Yeah.
Long, windy road, but I think we got through all of it.
Oh, I mean, as far as you just kind of happened your way into logistics at the very beginning. You didn't have any idea that it would end up where it did now. Just in general. When you think of logistics, is it oh gosh, it's noon. Let's kill it.